Hello, everybody, and welcome to our deck retrospective. Another blind campaign for Eric in the books.
That was a reference to how the campaign ended, by the way.
Also, yeah.
Yeah, this is us doing it as we fall.
And then also blind because the blind idiot god, yeah. So,
Yeah.
spoiler alerts, we lost. However, we've only won one campaign, so honestly, that's good.
And it was the best campaign.
So we're going to be talking about our decks today, what we thought of them, where we think they did good, where they think we did bad, just as we always do. So Eric, I'll let you start by breaking down your Will Yorick deck, talking about the cards, and talking about what you thought of the deck. So take it away!
So at first I was really proud of this deck, and then as I played it and as I learned more about the game, and Justin and I talked more about like learner tips or how to deal with a bad mulligan or things like that, I came to the conclusion that I actually had done Will Yorick a disservice. But by that point, there was not enough experience left in the world for me to fix the problems before we kind of reached the end campaign. So my Will Yorick deck was, I think, a very stereotypical Will Yorick deck from what I've heard. I had a short supply to cheese the game into giving me, in theory, more card draw. And this, truth be told, one of the big problems with my deck was that I relied on this instead of card draw. This, I thought, would be my solution to card draw. I thought, like, being able to do this with a couple of upgraded backpacks would basically be an entire deck's worth of searching for things. And that was the case, but you'll see in a moment why it didn't necessarily work. So, Eucatastrophe, I literally put in for the final event and then immediately threw it away with short supply. So that was poor planning on my part and just bad luck. I really wanted to like this card. This card would have actually saved us in the final moment of my life in the game, and it did not. Great for 3 experience, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is a good card, and York has a strong Elder Sign, too, and saying no to Elder Signs is like, to auto-fails and turning them into Elder Signs is really nice.
Yeah, and I thought I would really enjoy playing it, and I took that 3 experience and I threw it into Azathoth's Maw.
Yeah.
I did put in 2 Cherished Keepsakes. These actually stayed good throughout the game. I think that this is a really strong choice for York, just because it is a free thing to do when your economy is low. Not that my economy ever really got low, again, but I'll talk about that in a moment. These backpacks were my other alternative to card draw, and I guess this is the point where I'll talk about it. One of the problems I had with Will Yorick is that I built a Will Yorick who had almost no cards to commit to circumstances or to events. I really wanted to build this deck to be almost 100% based around finding the Red Gloved Man, putting the Red Gloved Man into play, and I didn't realize game-wise how slow it was to get another Red Gloved Man in and how to cycle them. There was only, I think, one session we did where I was able to do that successfully.
Yeah, and I think it was actually in the second scenario that we played, and it worked really well. And I was like, this deck's popping off! But what we saw was the peaks and valleys, right? And we were just at the peak there, but then there was a desolate valley waiting for us for a while after that.
Yeah, and that was partially also because I got very lucky with having the Red Glove Man cycle the way he did in the second scenario. And I spent a lot of scenarios after that struggling to figure out how do you get that cycle to actually work. I think if I was to rebuild this deck and make it Red Gloved Man again, I actually think I could do a better job, but I was actively misplaying against myself. So I built this deck to do one thing, and then I did not do that thing. That said, I thought Backpack was really good. Like the 2 times I played it.
Yeah.
I put in a Chainsaw. It was great. I had fun.
Yeah. I wonder how your deck would have been if that was your earlier weapon.
In
comparison. I'm curious to see how that would have been.
I agree.
I mean, we'll get to your weapon in the future, but
I did have a Solemn Vow, and one thing I came to the conclusion on with this card was, and it was really in like kind of the second last act, was that this card was shoring up a flaw in my deck. It wasn't actually delivering what I wanted it to be delivering. If my deck had been better, we wouldn't have necessarily needed this card as much as we did. But it was good for shoring up a hole in the deck. I wasn't moving fast enough to help us avoid situations in the encounter deck, which was often what you were having to dump damage from. You almost never had to dump damage onto me from a creature. We entirely had to do it because so often there would be extra turns occurring that would cause extra damage to fall on you, and then that would get fed onto me. Given that I had originally offered this deck as kind of a flex deck, That basically just told me that Solemn Vow was kind of like putting a Band-Aid over a big section of the way I built the deck that I just ended up not playing ever. Knife. I kept Knife in. I don't know why. I think it was one of the cards I was eventually going to get rid of. I never wanted to use Knife. I never wanted there to be a point where Knife was the card I wanted. I think next time I would have switched that card out a lot faster, because every time I drew it, it was a deadweight card.
If you think about it, because Bryn, who I consider to be Apex Yorick, like Yorick is Bryn's guy, he plays Knife sometimes to scenario 8.
Wow.
However, Bryn is a little bit more aggressive, and he also, I think, like he does a lot of like one-handed switching, which is it's a lot easier to commit to a Knife when a baseball bat is in your plan. Right, if that makes sense. And I think that's why Knife felt weird. But for example, like, let's say, for example, you had like a gun in one hand, or like, even if you were running Chainsaw from the beginning, a Knife is an easy way to replace your Chainsaw to play it again later.
That is
But with
true.
Baseball Bat, you're not really like looking at the same. So I do agree with the assessment that probably if you were building like, especially around Baseball Bat, it doesn't really hit the mark. But if you're building around like one-handed weapons or trying to loop chainsaws and like that's your deck's goal. However, if that's your deck's goal, it's hard to warrant Red Glove Man in there, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the tricky thing, is the balance of like killing. What are you killing with? But also, how can I do this sick-ass cycle Red Glove Man combo?
Yeah. And you know, another thing, as much as I love the Red Glove Man card and I had fun, and I probably will want to revisit a Red Glove Man cycling deck again.
I think you should do Amanda Sharp.
Amanda Sharp, okay.
Yeah, because so her thing, I'll let you finish your point in a second, but her thing is that she has 2s for her stats, but she is the best card draw. She can cycle her deck in a single turn.
Nice.
So like you just do that, play the Red Glove Man, and like just like, hey, I got him again. I'll do him again next turn. Yeah, it's very good.
Okay, see that, and yeah, that might be the move, because I think one of the problems too is as a fighter, I kept cycling in the Red Glove Man, and that would eat up a time. Like I know he's a fast, but like getting him, making sure I could play him.
Oh,
stuff
I think
like that.
also as well, like the dream of the Red Glove Man is that he's in play and makes your stats 6 for extended periods of time, over and over and over again. But the reality is that like probably like a beat cop that just gave you a static +1 fist probably would have been better for like what we needed at certain times.
Lots of
like
times.
every time the Red Glove, I agree. Every time the Red Glove Man came out, I was like, let's go. This is hype as hell. And I think he did work. He took soak damage for me, but it also like wasn't consistent, right?
I still had an Unexpected Courage in there. I eventually switched the other one out for Eucatastrophe. I think this is like literally my one thing that I committed to tasks, and it just wasn't enough. I saw the power of this card every time I did commit it, and I really should have either kept them or had more things I commit, even as Yorick. Even if I had 4 things I committed, that would have been better. And 4 things kind of more like this, because we will get to some of my commit cards, and they were a problem. I shouldn't have actually kept them. Hallowed Mirror, I almost never played.
You did add it because you were like, I'm dying. You actually you put it into your deck later, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And I think it was a mistake. I think it ended up just being a lot of extra chaff in my deck, because I never ended up having a time to play it.
That's fair.
Bandages. I liked bandages, but they felt too slow.
So I think this actually, what this all boils down to is that because you were fighting with a baseball bat, which is notably a not consistent weapon, it means that killing enemies is harder for you.
Yeah.
Which means you don't have enough time to play bandages, right? And like, it's interesting because like, yeah, it's good, but it does feel like, I mean, I kind of felt the same, that time was of the essence, and I didn't really have it in this deck once I get to my breakdown as well. Because I agree, cards that otherwise I think were really good, or are really good, did feel lackluster notably through this campaign.
Yeah. And again, I don't believe that that's Will Yorick's fault or that that's Bandage's fault. I literally think I was playing Will Yorick too slow. And it's because of my reliance on baseball bat and two-handed weapons that I was trying to keep out instead of cycling. I was actively slowing my deck down. And fishing for the Red Glove Man, while fun, would have been, I think, even better with a deck that had 2 weapons.
I'm curious now that if you built a Tommy deck, because Tommy and Yorick have a very similar card pool. I'm curious how it would have been different.
So the Red Gloved Man, every time he came out, he did huge business. He was great. For a 2-resource card, I can see playing him again, but I really overcommitted on cycling him without really knowing how to cycle him, and just he was kind of in opposition to weird parts of the rest of my deck. Instead of having a deck with Will Yorick where I discarded things to get advantages or I discarded things to take hits and throw them away, the Red Gloved Man ended up being the only thing in my deck that was really taking big hits for a long time, and that made me really reliant on him in a way that I think was kind of a weakness. Plucky kicks ass.
Yeah,
I wish I'd had
Plucky's-
Plucky from the beginning.
Plucky's great, and it's great in Yorick too because it's easy to play if you don't have anything else to play.
Yeah, and it's 0 cost. It's It was. I wish I'd had it from the beginning. The fact that it soaks for you automatically and you have to get rid of it, it's like, okay, fine. But that it boosts your stats and then you can boost them higher. I 100% in the future, if I played William Yorick or another cycle deck, I would absolutely put 2 Pluckies in as some of my early goal because I love these cards. I'm so impressed with Plucky. And it only came in like very late in my deck.
Yes, yeah, I remember it was added in pretty late.
Yeah, and the funniest thing was I didn't even end up using the stat boosts for Plucky. Just having a 0-1-3 come out, I was like, this is
honestly,
solid.
actually, we might have missed a brain boost at certain points with Plucky.
Yeah, I'm sure we did. But I just loved it just for that. Chance Encounter obviously goes with Red Gloved Man. I should have also bought these a lot earlier. I think this would have also been another thing that would have been absolutely... It would have changed my Will Yorick deck to have them like from scenario 2 on. These should have been my first 2 experience buys, I personally believe.
After the Red Gloved Man?
Yeah, after the Red Gloved Man. So if I was going to do a Red Gloved Man deck
going
again,
to that sooner. Yeah. I think that's fair.
So these were some of the things I had for commits, and I don't think they were particularly good. I think they can be really, really good in a deck, but I was actively avoiding commits, and I was actively cycling and like throwing away cards to try and find my Red Gloved Man combo. And so I ended up, I think, missing the boat on these.
Yeah, with those, like, Vicious Blow is like one of the strongest skills in the game after deduction. And it's just about like the fact that like with your baseball bat, it means that you just do it on like the 3 health enemy, so you have 1 less chance to break your bat as opposed to swinging twice at the enemy, right? That's where it comes in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I wasn't keeping them in my hand when I had opening hands. Like I was mulliganing away from them, which was a mistake. And I also was very cautious about using them, and that was on me.
Yeah, with those, because I think this was your first time playing Vicious Blow. You might have played them in Leo.
I played them in Leo. And in Leo, they were really good. Yeah. So I think this time
it was a mental difference of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think with that one too, I often didn't have them in my hand when I was fighting a creature with more than 2 health. So often
that does
felt
happen.
Like, why would I play this? And that was a mistake on my part. This card I also felt nebulous about, but usually because again I was playing Will Yorick so slow that I didn't have defenses up when this would have been a good card to play, because this could have done so much better in my deck, and I didn't play into it. I was very hesitant to take it because I was often in threat of taking horror, and I was at 3 horror right from the beginning, and so I ended up being way too nervous to play this, but then I didn't replace it either, which was a big mistake. If you have a card in your deck you're not going to play, even if it's a good card, it's a mistake to keep it in there.
Yeah, especially because there were other stuff, like even like when you were looking at it and you said you cut the Unexpected Courage for the Eucatastrophe, maybe that would have been better. However, that Toto did save us, give us a bit more time in the first scenario, which was pretty sick.
Yeah.
Because like Toto is a I like the card.
I think it's a great card.
Yeah, and I think also, I think with toe-to-toe, even for you as a new player, you probably are a bit more hesitant to just fire it off. With me, I'll just be like, kill you. You're dead. A cool thing you can do to toe-to-toe as well, if you ever play it again, because it is a fight test and it's automatically successful, you get to, you can commit cards to it. So you can commit a Vicious Blow to deal 3 damage.
Amazing. I've never considered that. Yeah, that would have been a really good card. Schaffner's Catalog, really good. No reason not to play it. In any Will Yorick deck, I would suggest it. It was my mana. It was my mana. It was my economy.
Yeah.
Notably, it did not chain with Red Gloved Man as I originally planned, and so that really screwed me up as well.
Yeah, I did notice that there were definitely economy issues with your deck.
Yeah.
And this is what I think we said it in the video, but like in the last gameplay, but the same thing here, that like I think like a take heart would have gone very well in your deck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Leather Coat, really good. Nothing to say there. Always play a Leather Coat. I had Emergency Cash. Economy, always good.
Yeah, so actually, I think what would have been a good upgrade for your deck, instead of some of the other stuff you did, if you could look at the plan again, to turn those into Emergency Cash 2s, because those also just replace themselves after. And I think also probably an Overpower would have gone a long way in your deck as well, especially if you were fishing for the Red Glove Man. Like, going to that plan of it.
So honestly, and now's a great time to talk about it with Baseball Bat.
Hey, it's Baseball Bat.
Hey, Baseball Bat. So my problem was I feel like I had two separate decks. And this is something I keep doing in this game because I'm still, I think, a relatively new player. The fact that I still have to ask how many cards I draw at the beginning of the game means I'm still a new player.
That's actually when everyone ever says that, I just always say what you repeated to me, which I think is so apt, which is as long as you don't know how to mulligan, you're still a new player. Like, if you don't know how you do your opening hand, like if you don't know how to do like setup, like your own deck setup, you're still a new player. You're still learning.
Yeah. So my problem was I had two decks. I had an entire deck revolving around Baseball Bat, and I had an entire deck revolving around Red Gloved Man. Mm-hmm. And that is four cards. What is it? 14 experience total. Mm-hmm. That my deck wasn't running in theory until I hit that 14 experience, and then it was running at cross purposes. Mm-hmm. So with Baseball Bat, I wanted to have this card out forever and just keep using it. With Red Gloved Man, I needed to have...
what the heck happened?
Horrible.
I got it. You keep going. I got it.
With Red Gloved Man, I wanted to be constantly cycling things to be able to pull the Red Gloved Man back into the game.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I was doing a very good job with this. I became really reliant on Baseball Bat staying in play and not discarding it to get, say, another Red Gloved Man out. And that was a big mistake on my part. I think there is a way to build a Red Gloved Man Baseball Bat Yorick deck, but you have to want your baseball bats to be thrown away. Mm-hmm. And I was way too fearful. I was desperately trying to hold on to them, and I wasn't immediately cycling it. Like, throwing away a baseball bat, getting the extra damage, and then putting a Red Gloved Man in to soak all the hits that the enemy's going to throw at you is perfectly valid. And then I could have played the knife and then thrown the knife at the thing to kill it and then put the baseball bat back into play. Like, there's so many other ways I could have played this, but I was scared. That's why Will Yorick failed, and that's why my deck building ended up going in so many directions. Yeah. Was because I got scared. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's my deck. I would love one day to hand this to Bryn exactly as it is and have Bryn do a scenario and see what Bryn does differently and what Bryn thinks of it.
You know what? That's not a bad idea. I could see because Travis goes away in April because Travis is an accountant. So, Travis's life is swallowed up by accounting stuff.
By
Azathoth, yeah. Death and taxes, right?
Yeah.
And maybe I could do that with Bryn. I could be like, hey, Bryn, Eric wanted to just see the difference, like the exact same deck, just to see how you play it in comparison. Just to see.
Yeah.
I think that could be a fun idea. So I'll make a deck list for that, and I'll put it together, and I'll get Bryn to try it out.
That said, I think Will Yorick is a lot of fun. I just think Will Yorick was definitely... oh my god, it's funny. I kept referring to this deck as mono black, and I was playing mono black where I was afraid of losing life. Mm-hmm, and you can't win a mono black deck if you're afraid of losing life.
It's true. I
mean, you can with vampires, but I wasn't playing vampires.
Yeah. All right. I have played my third deck of Never Fail Ashcan Pete. So a Never Fail Ashcan Pete deck uses cards like Pocket Multi-Tool, uses cards like Granny Orn, and uses cards like Lucky to never fail a test. Or alternatively, you also use cards like Look What I Found to turn your fails into what you wanted to. However, with all that said, this is probably my least successful Never Fail Ashcan Pete deck that I've built. And I actually know why that is. Number one, first off, because Circle Undone is a weak point of Survivor decks. Survivors do a lot of their investigating by failing or like going up against odds that are against them, and the haunted mechanic punishes them for that. So that was something that I knew that going in. I knew this card would be a weakness, but I wanted to see how it goes. However, the other reason is because I did a few things that were a little bit different because we were playing without the taboo list. And that was actually this Drawing Thin card, which is a very powerful Arkham Horror, the card game card. But I think in this deck, and in conjunction with your Will Yorick deck, there just wasn't enough time to be doing this thing. And I actually blame one card in particular, and that is Down the Rabbit Hole, which is another very powerful Arkham Horror, the card game card. So my question is, why did that go wrong? And I think it's because it put me into places that I generally otherwise wouldn't have gone with a deck like this. Because when you play Down the Rabbit Hole, you look at your cards and you think, how can I upgrade them to be better? Because new cards cost more and you want to reduce the cost where you can. So I looked at cards that I was going to be planning on upgrading anyway, and I did try out this Rabbit's Foot, the upgraded Rabbit's Foot, which I've actually never really played before in like a full campaign perspective, with Drawing Thin because I thought that would be pretty neat. However, oh man, the focal area on this camera is insane. Insane bad. Out of focus, in focus. So my apologies as we're going through all this. I'll try to remember. I never save physical decks of my paper stuff because set it and forget it. It's gone. Burn it. But I'll try to make deck lists for this one because the camera is so picky for its focal length today. But
I'll schedule an email to Justin about it once a day. I don't think Justin checks his emails, though.
I know, I do every day. If you send it to playing board games, it'll go.
Every day I'm scheduling one.
How these work is the dream was there, but the dream ultimately meant that, like how Eric was spending a lot of time not winning the game and ultimately led us to lose more than win. However, there were a lot of times where I would tell Eric, we'll get there. I have to just set up my machine. And when my machine was set up, it was really good. But the problem is that there were a lot of dead pieces, like Scavenging, which I've actually played a Never Fail Ashcan Pete deck before. But this wasn't the way. This was not the way for this one, and I should have changed it. Actually, likewise, with Ice Pick and Old Keyring 3, were just also kind of not the way to go for this deck. Maybe they were if I just took out the Scavenging, and because ultimately, if I look at it, if I wasn't playing Down the Rabbit Hole, all of these cards, where's those Scavengings? All of these cards would have been different things. So that's 8 cards in my deck that I think could have been improved on. I could have played, instead of Drawing the Thin, like Eric, I could have just probably had more success if I played a Take Heart, right? Instead of this Grizzled, if it was even just a Perception, it probably would have been better. And I think that's why, once again, even though the card is really good, I think that this little lady right here reading this book was the reason why I felt so many struggles with my deck. With that said, though, I did have fun. I do Never Fail Ashcan Pete, but because this is my 3rd time playing this deck, the whole concept for this deck, I do actually I have good experiences for why and what was a little bit different. However, one thing I did like about Down the Rabbit Hole was this Dig Deep. And I actually potentially would even maybe run 2 of them next time. Because this card actually did a lot of work, and I think that these cards are really good with Down the Rabbit Hole, because the level 0 version sucks, the level 2 version sucks, but the level 4 version is really good. But with Down the Rabbit Hole, you upgrade from the level 0 to level 2 for 1 experience, then level 2 to level 4 for 1 experience. So it's really easy to get these cards actually really nice in your deck. And then I had a few other variety of one-ofs. Actually, so one thing too that like if I was gonna be really, really fucking weird, I would try this exact same deck again, but instead of Granny Orn, I'd actually run Leo DeLuca, the green ally that gives you an extra action each turn. Basically just do a really bad Stella Clark impression, which makes me also try to think, like, what if I played Stella Clark as well?
Yeah, because this is a lot of these pieces I recognize from my Stella Clark deck.
I had Vicious Blow, a 1-of to help Eric kill enemies. Faustian Bargain for economy, which I actually didn't play that much. And I had a Crossroads, which I know is a good card, but I don't like dilemmas because you don't have choice for when you get them and when you play them, so they become less valuable for me. Another reason why I think this deck struggled is that the Racked by Nightmares can actually be a tough weakness at the wrong time, and I think we did draw it at the wrong time more than the right time in the campaign.
Yeah.
However, getting another enemy when Eric was already having struggles with his
There.
with their thank you, with their enemy management, and neither of our economies really being super stellar meant that Mob Enforcer was actually like a big deal. So I look at that too as kind of just like all of the reasons for why I felt my deck struggled more than it succeeded. Which is cool, you know. It's nice to like look at the perspective and be like, oh, that's where I went wrong.
It's fun too because in a way like this, our two weaknesses being ghouls and being the Mob Enforcer should have been so good for me as Will Yorick.
Yeah,
but yeah, I was just crawling.
This cuts off your head. This is an awful overlay for two people. There's Eric.
There's me.
So yeah, here, let me just...
No, I'm living this now.
No.
Oh.
I don't have a good overlay for just this. There we go. We'll just come back here. We'll just go back to this one. But yeah, what did you think of these decks and actions? And did you maybe notice the same things when you watched the campaign play out? We do have some interesting ideas for Dream Eaters. Are they good? We'll have to wait and see.
As a narcissist, I read all your comments, so I am gonna if you have suggestions on mistakes I'm making as a player that you're seeing, even just in my deck building, please post them. I will read them. I will never comment, but I will read them. Shout out to the one person who was like, Eric's gonna have so much fun in this scenario.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So yeah, we'll see, because we have our recap, which we're going to be recording, I mean, right now, but it's actually might even be out on the channel by now. But thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this, and look forward. We have 4 decks to be talking about coming up for Dream Eaters, which should be really fun. I think we're also going to do an actual deck building video together, and I think we're going to do it on ARKHAM DB.
I'm playing 2 Yithians.
2 Yithians. That's illegal, but we're going to do it anyway.
Well, you play the...
1 Yithian is legal, 2 is illegal.
You play the banned cards anyways.
Well, that's well, actually, no. So yeah, no, those are taboo. It's a lot different than...
It's different than illegal.
It is, yeah. Well, because taboo just means they're different. It means they're altered. A Yithian, you actually can't play by the rules. We'll make it up, though.
Yeah.
Well, I know 1 is okay, 2 is illegal. That's what I'm saying. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.